So if you're making the move down to Louisiana, you've got a big decision to make. Do you buy or do you rent? We're going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of each in this video, so let's get into it. What's up guys, Shaun Ramos here. Welcome to the channel. This is Living in Louisiana, and here we talk about everything that you need to know when it comes to what it's like moving to or living in Louisiana. So if that sounds like something to be into, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell because I put out new videos just like this one every single week. And we want to make sure you get notified when a new one comes out so you don't miss anything. And in case you didn't know, I am a licensed realtor in Louisiana. So that number that's popping up on your screen right now, that's the best way that you can reach out to me with any specific questions or needs that you have when it comes to making the move to Louisiana. And I'm the guy that replies to every single call, text, or email that comes through. And as much as I do love making these videos for you guys, what I really love is helping you with your real estate needs. So if there's anything at all I can do to help you, just let me know. So of course you know this already because I just said it, but I am a real estate agent, but this is not a real estate channel. We're not typically talking about real estate things on this channel. We talk more about the area so that you can get a feel for what it's like in different parts of town and kind of get a feel for where you might want to be if you're moving to Louisiana. And if you are making that move, you've got a really tough decision to make. You know, do you buy a house or do you rent?
That is a tough one.
There's definitely pros and cons for each, but your specific situation is gonna determine which might be the better way to go. Now, I've been helping a lot of you guys make the move here to Louisiana, and most of the ones that I've helped so far have bought houses. But there is one client whose family just signed up to build a house, and we found them a rental to live in while they build. And literally just today, I found a rental for a client who's moving down from Tennessee. He wants to rent for a year before he buys something. Now, I sell houses for a living, so I don't typically deal with rentals a lot, but for you guys, I don't mind helping at all. If you're moving from out of state and you need help finding a place here, especially if you're gonna buy something in the future, I wanna be your guy when that day comes, and I don't mind helping you find something temporarily, whether you're gonna buy or not. Because there's no doubt that making a move to a new state in an area you know nothing about is tough, and it can be even tougher if you're gonna buy a house. But I have been helping some of you guys make that happen. Because like I said, my intent is to give you a good idea of what the different parts of town are like and help you come up with an area that may work for you. But also, you probably need to talk some of this stuff out. So once you actually reach out, that first Zoom call that we set up, that's the chance for me to really get a feel for what you need, what you're looking for, where you want to be, you know, what you need to be close to, and then I can help narrow down some areas that would probably work well for you. And while I do sell houses for a living, I'm not completely anti-renting. It does have its place, so let's just start there. Let's talk about some of the general pros and cons for renting. Let's start with the pros. The first one is going to be that you've got more flexibility. So if you're only going to be here for a short time frame, or really you're not sure how long you're going to be here, renting may be the better option. Buying a house is definitely a longer term commitment. When you're renting, usually you can get into a 12-month lease, so you're not locked in for too long. And if you know you're gonna be moving even within a few years, if you buy a house, you're generally not gonna have much equity built in those first few years. And that's not always the case. You can just get lucky like I did. So I bought a house in 2019. And we planned on staying there long, but some things came up and we needed to sell within 2 years. But luckily, the market had gone so crazy since we bought it and values had risen so much that we actually made $90,000 after only living there 2 years. But that was definitely just the luck of the market, so I definitely wouldn't count on that. Next pro, we got lower upfront costs when you're renting versus buying, most of the time. Typically, you're looking at paying your first month's rent, the security deposit, which is usually equal to the first month's rent. And if you have any pets, there's usually gonna be some kind of pet fee or deposit. Versus if you're buying a house, you may have a down payment, you've got closing costs to cover, but certain types of loans, you can get 100% financing, like a VA or an RD loan. And then depending on the listing and depending on the market at the time, sometimes we can get the seller to put up enough concessions that you don't have to come out of pocket much for your own closing costs either. So if you're getting 100% financing and you have the seller cover your closing costs, there's really very minimal cost to buying a house. But for the majority of the people, you're gonna need a down payment, you may need some closing costs, so it's probably cheaper most of the time to rent. The next one is limited responsibility. So when you're renting, you're not responsible for the maintenance of the house. There may be some small things that you would do as the tenant, but for the most part, the landlord's responsible. In a lot of rentals that I see, they even want to come do the simple things like changing your light bulbs and changing the air conditioner filters. But definitely if something significant breaks, it's their responsibility. Now let's talk about the cons of renting. First one, and I think this is the biggest one for me, is the lack of equity. Now make no mistake, there's equity being built in any house you live in, but if you're renting, then the equity is being built for the owner. And it's great for them. You're making their payment and it's great for them. You're making their payment, so the principal's getting paid down. Hopefully the value is going up. So they're building equity at your expense. Another con is you've got limited control. So the landlord makes all the rules and you don't have much say over any of it. Typically, you can't really make any modifications to the house without written permission from the landlord. And the final con is potential rent increases. So it's pretty typical to see that at the end of your lease, the landlord's gonna have some kind of built-in increase. So you can kind of expect that the amount you're paying for your monthly rent when you get the place initially is not what it's gonna be over the long term. Now let's talk about some of the pros and cons of buying. Pros first. Number one, you're building equity. This is the exact opposite of the first con of renting. So again, no matter who's living in the house, equity is being built. But in this case, the payment that you're making every month is paying down your principal amount, and hopefully the value is going up over time, so that split is your equity. And the more equity you get, the better for you, because there's a lot of things that you can do with that equity. You can get a line of credit if you ever need to tap into it, or you can sell the house and cash out. Next, you've got control. When you own the house, you're the boss. You can make any changes you want, you can customize things, you can upgrade things, you can knock out walls and change the floor plan, but you don't have any landlord telling you what you can and can't do to the house. Another pro, you've got stability. So buying a house is definitely a longer term commitment. And as long as you're making your payment, you can stay there as long as you like. And you don't have any landlords that can sell the house out from underneath you, change any of the rules, or raise your rent. And that's not to say your payment can never change, but when you're buying a house, assuming you got a fixed rate mortgage, your principal and interest are locked in. Over time, your property taxes could increase and your homeowner's insurance could increase. Now for your homeowner's insurance, that's definitely something you can shop around. So if you do see that going up over time, look around and it's likely you can find a better deal elsewhere. Now let's talk about the cons of buying. You're typically gonna have higher upfront costs, sometimes. Again, to reiterate, if you're renting, you're gonna have first month's rent, security deposit, maybe pet fees or deposits. So in the case of the guy from Tennessee that I was telling you about earlier, the rent is $2,300 a month. So between the rent, the security deposit, and the pet fees, he's looking at an initial payment of $5,100 to get in. And when you're buying, if you've got that down payment you've got to make and you've got closing costs to cover, you could easily be into the tens of thousands. But your typical down payments are gonna be 3.5% or 5%, and sometimes higher, depending on the loan type you get. Closing costs, depending on the property, could be anywhere from $5,000 or $6,000 to $10,000. But again, there are cases where we can really minimize or completely eliminate a lot of those costs. Just recently, I had another out-of-state client who was moving from Tennessee again that bought a house with a VA loan, and they actually left the closing with a check. So they got money back. Another con, now you've got the responsibility of maintenance. So you can't depend on your landlord to change your AC filters anymore, and if something breaks, you've got to fix it. And it sucks, but sometimes it happens. But if your HVAC breaks a week after you buy the house, that's your problem to take care of. When you're buying the house, home warranties can possibly be helpful. I've heard some people love them, some people hate them, say they're a complete ripoff. But I have seen it happen where I've helped someone buy a house, we were able to get them a home warranty, something broke, and it did save them at least some money. Final con is your flexibility is definitely limited. Again, buying a house is a longer term commitment, so there can be geographical constraints that tie you to the location that you buy in. And the real estate market is definitely subject to fluctuation. So if you find yourself in a situation where you need to sell and the market's in a downturn, it can be a problem. But the real estate market is just like the stock market. Even in a downturn, you don't realize any losses unless you sell. But if you need to sell during that downturn, you could be in a bind. Now those are the pros and cons, and here are some things to consider that may help you make your decision. Your financial situation, how much money do you have in the bank? Can you afford a down payment? Can you afford closing costs if you have to? Or even in a higher price rental, can you afford the first month's rent, security deposit, and pet fees that come along with it? Your future plans, is there any chance you're gonna have to move anytime anytime in the near future? Or do you plan on planting roots and being here for the long term? And your personal preferences, what's most important to you? Think about your financial goals. Does the possibility of building a lot of equity in your home sound appealing? The maintenance and responsibilities. Are you okay taking on that responsibility if something breaks? Or are you more of the type that prefers to lean on the landlord if something breaks? And the control. Are you okay with somebody else making the rules? Or do you want to be the king or queen of your own castle? Again, it's a big deal when you're moving to an area that you don't know much about. Hopefully this video helps you make your decision, but if you need to talk this stuff through, that number that's popping up on your screen right now is the best way you can reach out to me. And I'm happy to have these conversations with you guys. I'm here to be a resource for you for anything real estate related, and I'm here to help in any way I can. So don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything I can help you with. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, whatever you prefer. If you haven't done it yet, do me a favor, click subscribe and the notification bell because I'm putting out new videos just like this every week. As always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next video.